You're listening to Mark of the Maker. Hey everybody, I'm Mark Steiner and you're listening to Mark of the Maker. This is episode 104 of the podcast. And we're going to talk a little bit about a recent happening. We'll get to that in just a second. Let's make sure we got everybody here. We have Mr. Sean Kendrick.
Hey, hey.
We have Mr. Tom Crine.
Ladies and gentlemen.
We have Mr. Michael Birch.
Here.
Yeah, there it is. All right, we'll get to our guests. We actually have two guests this time. It's a rarity that we have two guests. Because you know what I would do if I won $1 million, right?
Two chicks at once.
Two guests at the same time.
Never talk to us again.
Right, well, that too. You'd know. There would be signs.
There would be signs, right?
All right. Tom, you want to kick us off on our thank yous? We got to do a couple things up front.
Yeah, man. I want to give a big shout out to our Patreon supporters. Patreon really makes everything possible. For this podcast alone, we picked up a couple mics and had them shipped to our guests. And basically our support on Patreon helps that happen. And it doesn't have to be much. If you aren't a Patreon supporter and you want to check it out, just go to patreon.com and type in Mark of the Maker. We've got a couple different levels, and we greatly appreciate your guys' help on this. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys make it possible.
Yeah.
So we have we got a some special project coming up with some new merch that we've been working on. And some of our Patreon folks, some of the higher tier folks actually get early access to that stuff. And these are going to be, should we call them super exclusive? Ultra rare?
Ultra rare.
Ultra rare. Mm-hmm. We'll share a little more about that once we have the info, but patrons get first shot at that stuff if you're in certain tiers. So go see the website and join us if you like, and hopefully we'll give you some perks for it on the occasion, but we appreciate y'all.
Yeah. We also want to thank old George Palagonia, Party Boy George Palagonia, amxinks.com. He does his our titanium, he's got zirconium, a lot of Damas steel. And just pretty much a lot of the stuff that you need for the knife making. He's been sponsoring us for a long time. We appreciate it very much. It's amxinc.com.
Right on. Thank you, George.
If he don't got it, you don't need it.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm going to talk to you about our sponsor, Giant Mouse Knives. And if you guys haven't noticed, this will be my first Giant Mouse ad read, and there's a reason for that. I was really aware of their stuff. I'd seen pictures online, and I really didn't want to do an ad read until I'd been able to look with my hands and not just my eyes. And so this past weekend, I was able to get my hands on a nice sampling of their stuff, and I've got to say, I am more than comfortable talking up their product now. I was really impressed with every knife that I handled. They actually had a pre-production prototype that I tried to buy a few times. I may have been annoying about that, but that don't bother me, because I really wanted that piece. And once it comes out, you guys will see why. It's a super, super nice knife. Of the knives I looked at, the two that really stood out to me and that I'll probably end up getting at some point are the Jutland and the Riv. Both are really cool knives. Both have great lines, great actions, really nicely thought out details abound. There's little Easter eggs all over them that if you're a real, detail-oriented guy, you're just going to love. And, man, I really can't recommend their knives enough, especially at the price point. You'll lose money if you don't get one of their knives. They're just that friggin' good.
Wow.
Yeah, man, I was sold. I really enjoyed my time talking to the guys, getting to play with the knives, and yeah, I highly recommend them. Just great pocket knives, great carry knives.
A glowing endorsement from Sean Kendrick.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And where did you find these knives at? Where did you go?
Yeah, if I wanted to learn more, where would I go?
You would go to giantmouse.com.
Nice.
I thought you were going to be like Pacific Northwest, just an invitational show. like me, like all the cool people.
We'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that. All right. So thanks, fellas. We have two guests with us this time. I think it's safe to refer to them as both recovering former guests of Mark and the Maker and friends of the show. So we have Mr. Billy Cho.
Hello, children. I had to throw it back to one of Sean's intros.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, buddy.
And we have Mr. Nick Rolfe.
Hey, Nick.
Billy and Nick are with us because they are the guys that put on the show that we talked a little bit before it happened here, and that a couple guys went to. Michael and Sean were there. Pacific Northwest Custom Invitational. So we were going to just kind of wrap that show up and check in with the guys and talk a little bit about the show, what happened, what works, what doesn't work, what it's like to try to put on a show, because that sounds like a total nightmare. And yeah, that kind of stuff. So you guys in decompress mode? We're not that far after the show.
Oh, yeah. So I just started getting back to work yesterday, but, with having a show, there's so many things to ship back to people and all that. So I spent the whole day going to 3 different shipping places and shipped out a bunch of boxes, and now I can finally kind of get back to work.
What about you, Nick? Were you heavily in the middle of the show, and then it's kind of like, whew, afterward, or what's that like for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard to describe. Michael and I were talking about it a little bit. I think the biggest decompression for me was probably just the kind of anxiety side of it. You always want to bring your best and try to make it as smooth as possible for all our friends and all the people that made the trip. So I don't know about Billy, but I slept like shit, like for 3 days before, including the night before, and not. I'd say it's not. I couldn't say it's like performance anxiety or something like that, like getting ready to go play a big concert, but more just you just want everything to go off right. So I think for me the biggest decompression was being able to just take a deep breath and say, okay, we executed this time, and we definitely paid attention to what kind of feedback we got from the last show, and definitely tried to address that. I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. But obviously there's always room for improvement. And so I think we got some great data points from this show to move forward and make it happen once again.
Yeah, I was kind of the same way. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
No, I was going to say, what were some of your big worries about this year?
Well, I was going to say that I kind of dealt with the same thing as Nick as far as the anxiety. I am a knife maker. I think most of us deal with some kind of mental issues. But yeah, the few days before the show is just, I think I just was hoping that everything went right, and that, that people wouldn't cancel. And I think I finally got a sense of relief. Like, I think I was the last person to leave the show floor. I stayed all the way till 7, and most people moved out around 6. Like all the guests, and they were already striking tables at that point. But I just wanted to make sure that no one else came in, so I stayed at 7 and walked the show floor. And I just wanted to, just kind of take it in and then just kind of let it all out and just kind of relax and, release some of that tension and just kind of stand there and be like, oh shit, we did it.
Yeah. I thought it went well. What were some changes you absolutely wanted to do from last year? Because we know it was in like the warehouse, it was in Portland. You guys did some big changes. So how did that go about? How did you end up where you guys went?
Infrastructure. I can't stress that enough. Doing the raw space was great aesthetically, but man, was that stressful, and was it expensive? We spent a lot of money on that show last year just to be able to do the show that we did, and there were some definite weaknesses that, of course, we talked about last time, and that's one of the things Billy and I sat down and talked about last time. Was like, okay, never again here.
Yeah, I know. Like, one of the low points of the show last year, I was just like, we had all these amazing knives and knife makers, but then seeing someone like Bob T go to a porta potty, I was like, oh man, And so, yeah, like Nick said, everything was really expensive. I mean, I always say this example. I'm like, we had to throw away all the trash ourselves and then throw the trash cans away that we used to put the trash in, right? Because they literally had nothing over there. So just the open floor space. And, we had to pretty much get everything, and having everything ready the night before was so stressful. We had guys that were bringing the tables for the show, and they were saying, "Oh, we'll show up on Saturday." And we're like, "No. That's the day of the show." And so it was very stressful, much more stressful last year, just because we didn't know if we'll have everything ready until literally, I think it was like 8:00 is when we left.
The night before.
The night before, and everything was kind of set up. We had to get lights and fences, again, trash cans and a dumpster and porta potties and sinks and food carts and all of that stuff. And, the other big thing was weather, right? Because, Oregon is pretty lovely in the summer, and, it doesn't really get in the 90s too much over here. Usually it's like mid 80s to 70s. And, 2 weeks before the show last year, it was like 100 something degrees. They had like a record
115.
Yeah, had a record high. And I was like, oh no, our show is ruined, because I knew it was going to be at an outdoor venue. And so luckily that day was 76 degrees as a high, and people still got roasted waiting outside. And when the sun kind of came down and shined into the warehouse, a lot of other people got roasted as far as sunburn wise. And so, that was one of the biggest reasons why we moved it to the coast, because the Oregon coast is typically anywhere from 15 to 20 degrees cooler. And so if there's any issues with weather, it typically would be wind. But for the most part, it's amazing in the summer on the coast. And a lot of us locals go there, weekly, just because it's gorgeous. So that was one of the biggest reasons why we decided to move it to the coast.
It was wild how cool it was there. And all through our trips and going through there, I was just like, this is amazing. I was dreading going home because I knew it was like 100 degrees here. And I mean, I was wearing a fleece and shit and flannels, and it was crazy. And I know some folks were probably not too happy with the drive, or at least that's one of the things I heard the most about it being moved. And I don't know. I feel like we're all grown ups. We can rent a car. We can do whatever. That didn't bother me at all.
Man, my drive was fantastic. We went through a beautiful area.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it in the slightest.
Yeah, the drive to the coast is beautiful. I mean, you're driving through the Tillamook Wilderness on Highway 26, or there's other ways you can go, but it's pretty much any way to get to the coast is beautiful. You're driving through pristine Oregon wilderness.
But a cheese factory in Tillamook also.
We stopped there on the way home.
Yeah.
Pretty good, right?
Oh, dude, we had fresh cheese curds off the belt. It was fantastic.
That's the first place I ever had those, and I was like, "Whoa, these are good."
Yeah, what I noticed is that the people that are complaining about distances, a lot of them were local. And I was like, come on, man. And then you had people like, Flavio and Pedro, who came from Brazil, and they were just so happy to be there,
Patrick Doyle drove like 5,000 miles.
Patrick Doyle,
right.
Yeah. Super road trip.
Yeah. I know my wife appreciated the indoor plumbing on this one. I know, like
she
the
didn't even come
convention
last
center.
year. Did she?
My wife?
Did she? Yeah. I can't remember.
Oh,
it was a blur.
Oh, boy.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
Hopefully she doesn't listen.
Abby, he didn't mean
Listen to
that.
this shit.
We're
That
going
was
to
a joke,
edit
Abby.
this.
Edit that out, please.
No.
No, my whole
I
family
just
was
took-
there last year, but that's cool,
I was saying, Abby, I made you some money, so hopefully that'll, forgive a multitude of sins.
It's a good shot at a recovery, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
No, she liked that part. And, I did too. Just, I didn't mind at all. It didn't feel like, the same type of huge, whatever. It still felt intimate. It still felt kind of a small, as a small show. It wasn't a huge room by any stretch of the imagination. At least didn't feel like it.
It was actually space-wise, it was probably almost double our space last year. It just seemed a little bit smaller because we were in a 400,000 square foot warehouse, right? And so,
Yeah.
but I think we had probably close to 16 to 17,000 square foot, not including the foyer, but just the show floor.
What? So it was like an hour and a half drive ish from the airport.
It depends on which
About
time.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It doesn't surprise me in any way. People complain about anything, so I'm not surprised at all that people complain about driving a little bit in some cases. But like you said, at least it's a nice drive, or can be, right? If you go the right way.
Yeah, I mean the drive is just so gorgeous,
Yeah, it's a pretty drive, and also kind of what Billy and I talked about was the idea of making this like a destination knife show. Make it where the people that can see the vision look at it as a family beach vacation with a knife show attached and bonfires on the beach afterwards.
Right.
And a lot of people did kind of utilize that and came a few days early and went and checked out all the beautiful areas around it ahead of time. And that's kind of the vibe we were looking to capture is make it like a destination show. So, and I think some people that were on the fence about it when they actually came out there, they were like, oh, okay, I get it now. And I didn't hear anybody that said they didn't want to come back. I personally didn't. I'm not saying I spoke to every person, but the overwhelming majority of people that I talked to were like, oh man, we cannot wait for next year. The bonfire on the beach was a big hit. I think the only thing that I heard from a couple people, and it's not a big deal, but in comparison to the food options in Portland, because Portland is a huge foodie town, the food is not the same out at Seaside. Not to say it's bad food. It's just, Portland's got exceptional dining options.
Yeah, right.
It's definitely a foodie town.
It does, but at the same time, like we went with Caesar and Franny last year. My wife was there too, and my kids.
Oh,
and,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, Abby and right.
Yeah.
Who's
Name
that?
me that. Yeah, but we went to some place we were supposed to go in Portland, for donuts, Blue King or Blues. I don't know what it was. Someplace you're supposed to go, but it was like,
Don't you dare disrespect Blue Star Donuts.
Whatever.
Not remembering.
But we walked through a homeless camp and all this stuff, and it felt very.
Right.
It was a strange feeling to be like, oh, we're going to overpay for donuts while we, I don't know, it
Dodge meth heads.
Yeah, I felt bad. Like, well, I should be giving my money or something instead of going and doing, something for stupid donuts. It just, I don't know. Right. I was okay with that part, but I'm not a foodie either.
I mean, one of the things was, Portland is slightly cleaning up as far as the homeless stuff, and they're just moving them out, bringing dumpsters and, just kind of throwing all their stuff away and moving them around, out of that area. But it's a slow process, it was kind of like they let it go for so long. And I know a lot of, there were some makers that said that if we did it in Portland, they never wanted to come back. And so
there's always,
so
always going to be somebody.
And I understand because, knife shows and, there's a lot of money involved. And some people come with hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend, and they leave with, knives that are 5 figures sometimes. So I understand they want a sense of safety, And so, I mean, if we were to do another show in Portland, it wouldn't be close to downtown. A lot of the suburbs are much safer and things like that. So, but yeah, it's exactly what Dick said. The coast is, super safe. A lot as far as like people go surfing all the time. They just leave everything unlocked. They leave all their clothes and gear outside. Nothing really gets stolen. It's not to say that it's a perfect city, but it was a surprise for a lot of people how beautiful it was, and the weather was amazing, and yeah, it was again, it was the whole idea was for us to kind of I always say it's a selfish way for me to see my friends. It is, but for once I wanted to give knife makers and their families a break and have them come out and have a quick show, make some money, and enjoy the scenery, have a vacation.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know it, I mean, us knife makers, we didn't pay table, which is, not something that happens very often.
Right. So I'm 100% transparent as far as like how this works, and so there were a few makers that actually did pay a table fee. So the way I have this set up is, right, there's a lot of prestigious makers here, and if you're a relatively new maker making good stuff, you pay a small, very small table fee. And the reason why I do that is because I'm a knife maker myself, right? And I'm not going to let some people just use it as a stepping stone for their career and not pay their dues. And so this life isn't really cut out for everyone. And so, the way that works is I say, hey, you're relatively new. You don't have a customer base yet. And it basically, if you become, if you bring in crowds, then the next years you won't have to pay for a table. But if you're relatively new and making good stuff and want to get your name out there and you want to use our show as a platform, then you got to pay a little bit. And it's literally probably a half to a quarter of what they pay for other shows. Yeah. And now there's also the vendors. If the vendors want to get a table, they can either pay a table fee. By vendors, I mean production companies. If they want to pay a table fee, they're welcome to do that, or they can donate items and products to give away to the attendees.
Yeah. That's still, pretty good. And hopefully that kept some from kind of backing out or whatever, because that's also kind of the tough thing about a free type of show or whatever.
Right. Like I said, if you're relatively new and you start bringing in crowds, your fans, right? Like every knife maker should. That's what knife shows do, right? A lot of these promoters don't think, they're like, hey, we're giving you a spot, you got to pay all this money as a knife maker. And I know you're selling. I understand that aspect of it. But the knife makers are what brings the people to the shows. Yeah. And so, it's a way for me to get them to help their own brand, right? And so if they have a goal to say, hey, if I bring 10, 20 people to the show that want to buy my stuff, yeah, you don't need to pay a table fee anymore, So I always call it no easy props. That's the thing that we called it in b-boying, where just because you're a girl or a fat guy that can break dance, I'm not going to clap for you unless it's good, right? Yeah. Just because you're a Navy SEAL, I'm not going to give props to you just because you make a knife that looks like trash. So it's no easy props, I think, because this life really isn't made for everyone, right?
Yeah. And I think you guys are going to have to refer to like episode 8 or something to understand the B-Boy reference.
Yeah, Billy, if you haven't listened to Billy's episode, it'll make a little more sense.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's an interesting thing to talk about or bring up, right? This is not a typical business model for a knife show, right?
No.
I mean, this is a labor of love thing for you guys from the beginning, and maybe talk a little bit about that and why you would even do it.
It's funny. When Jade was doing his shows, what was that, 2018, 2019, I think, or 2017, 2018, 2019. When he was doing his shows, Billy and I talked about it because we were like, man, that's super dope that he's doing this. This area needs a knife show. And, but when Jade said he wasn't going to do it again, Billy hit me up and was like, hey man, we should do this. We should do a show. And we kind of kicked it around for what, Billy, 6 to 8 months, something like that, just going back and forth.
Well, I did an April Fool's joke and saying, hey, Nick and I are taking over I think Jade called it the Pacific Northwest Hand-Built Invitational. So I posted that and people were like, awesome. And I was like, oh shit. Not the reaction I was expecting. And then so I was like, maybe we should do it at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. And we each talked to Jade, Billy talked to Jade, I talked to Jade, and he was like, man, by all means, do it, and that's kind of how it came about. And I initially was like, nah, man, I'm too busy. And, I'm just a collector. All these guys are my friends, but I don't have a large outreach to all these other knife makers that I don't know. And Billy was like, absolutely not. We're doing it as a team, and let's do it. So we just started kind of chopping it up and kind of playing around with ideas. And I have to say that what we did last year, I was like, man, I don't know if I want to do something like that again. It was just a lot, it was a lot. But by Billy reaching out to the people at Seaside Convention Center and having everything built in, it definitely was more appealing to me. And you know, it's a good team, you know, a collector and a maker, and it seems to work out pretty well. You know, if I take too many shenanigans from Billy, I'm just going to make him buy me out. But
I was gonna say I'll sell the show to 50/50 or Recon One for $100 right now. No, but I mean, again, it was a labor of love. You know, fortunately, Nick and I, you know, we do very well as far as our career wise, and so, you know, it wasn't a money making scheme. You know, and our whole idea was, as long as we don't lose money, then we'll probably keep on doing it. And people don't realize the hundreds of hours that goes into it. And a lot of show promoters make a ton of money doing shows, and it's 100% deserved because of all the hours and the work you put into it. But, you know, again, Nick and I were thinking, for once, let's try to cater to the makers and the collectors. And, you know, before I was a maker, I was a collector. And, you know, there's been many shows as a collector I went. And a lot of times, you know, obviously it's to hang out with friends and things like that. But a lot of our friends ended up being really good makers. And the only time to see them was at these shows where you pay a lot of money to see or go and see these people. And, you know, a lot of times I went as a collector and I was like, man, I've been to this show 7 or 8 times and didn't win a single knife. Right. And that was like, oh, that kind of sucks. And so, you know, what I did, you know, I used to actually throw b-boy competitions, right? And so one of the things I did back then was, you know, link up with clothing manufacturers and things like that, and just donate thousands of dollars in clothes to everyone that attends. So it gives them a incentive to come, and even if you spend, you know, $20 to get inside a breakdancing event, you can leave with a $100 shirt. So I was like, why wouldn't that work with all the knife manufacturers that are here in Oregon? If people don't know, you know, Kershaw, CRKT, Gerber, I think Leatherman is another one, Benchmade. They're all in Oregon, probably within a 10-mile radius from each other. You know, Benchmade is the furthest one away, but CRKT and Kershaw, they're in the same town. I think Gerber is just the next town over, which is just a few miles away. And so is Leatherman. So, you know, reaching out to these guys and saying what we wanted to do, you know, I went on a bunch of meetings with these executives and people that work at these companies and let them know what we were trying to do. And they were just absolutely all about it. And so I was like, okay, let's do something special where we can potentially give every single attendee a free knife to come to the show, a production knife. And it happened, you know. And so it was a way for us to honor the collectors and, you know, give makers a break. So that was the whole idea behind it.
How many pieces do you think you had to give away? Because it must have been a ton.
300. Yeah. More than 300.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I walked around with the cart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And let me just say real quick, big shout out to all those production companies that Billy named, and Glock, and everybody that showed up and really supported us. I mean, teamwork definitely makes the dream work. And part of what made this show very cool for us to be a part of was to have the support of all those production companies that were super generous. So I can't stress enough how grateful we are for their support on that.
Yeah, 100% shout outs. Yeah, shout outs to Tactile Turn. They were, they did the option of donating products for a table, and they gave away knives and pens and their stuff's really hot right now as well. Same thing with Giant Mouse. You know, they gave a bunch of knives to give away. Brian Weiss, he does B Weiss Leather. He gave a bunch of custom Pacific Northwest embossed leather goods out. And there's, tons more, right? The carvers and HMC guys, they made like little carabiner things. And we gave those out. It was just a ton of stuff to give away. It wasn't just knives, but I mean, and each manufacturer gave a plethora of like the most randomest knives too, from volley songs to throwing knives to, I mean, and a lot of their top tier stuff. Kershaw gave a lot of ZT stuff, and it was just there's something for everyone, right? There's little keychain knives for, people who bring their wives and that are not really into knives, but then they have a little trinket now. And, it was just amazing. And I think everyone was super appreciative of all that stuff.
Totally.
Yeah. And Glock being there, and you guys did some giveaways with them too. And I mean, shit,
Yep.
man.
Yeah, Glock reached out to me. I'm in the firearms industry, so I have a lot of relationships with firearms companies and things like that. And one of I believe he is the West Coast rep for Glock. So anything from Colorado all the way to California, he's like the head guy. And
Shout
he's
out
like,
to Matt Chan.
yep. And I was like, hey, you wanna have a table? Because, knife shows can, either become a big beef jerky kind of thing. Shout outs to beef jerky. I love beef jerky, but they'll have it'll be like, it can be a weird show where people sell, just like a old gun show sometimes, right? And sometimes shows get too big and they kind of let people that are way out there outside of our industry in. And sometimes you kind of lose the magic of it. And other shows just kind of seem very transactional, where they're just knife makers and their customers, which is fine, right? But I wanted to just kind of do something different, invite other vendors. And I heard, at Blade Show that STI was there, I believe, and it was like a big hit. And I was like, these motherfuckers, they heard that I was bringing Glock. But no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I was like, I have all these relationships, and Glock was willing to donate pistols. So I did a lottery for the makers, one for the makers and one for the collectors. And I just drew today. So for the collectors. And if you just attended the show, you can enter. So we just wanted to just kind of mix it up. And, a lot of these things like guns and tools are part of the EDC community, right? Jewelry and leatherworking. And so we just wanted to mix it up a little bit and have a little bit of something for everyone as well.
So there's like a curation aspect, right, that you guys bring to the table that maybe is a bit more refined than random knife show that turns flea markety, right? Because you guys are going to pick shit that you think is cool that people will like because you're in the middle of it all, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping Nick would bring Bruce Springsteen or Sting, but that didn't happen. But
Conflict of schedules.
Yeah, that's 100% it. Yeah, it was just, I've been in the firearms industry for so long, and if these guys are willing to, just trying to maybe grab another market, and they're willing to, give away things like pistols, who am I to say no? And I think, again, like all these things go hand in hand. And, at the same time, I invite material makers, right? And material makers don't generally sell to the general public. So it was really for the makers, right? So they can come and buy supplies. And, same thing with having weird, gun vendors and things like that. Knife makers like seeing that kind of stuff, right? Seeing the newest model guns and while some knife makers are still knife collectors, a lot of times they don't collect knives themselves, right? And so I just wanted to give different options for the makers as well. So
yeah, it was pretty diverse. I mean, there was lots of different stuff, like you said. I mean, having the gun stuff, a lot of EDC stuff, Forge guys, and EDC
Watches.
tactical stuff. It was pretty crazy. Yeah, watches. You had OJ there. Rolling around that massive new Deep Sea. That was cool as hell to see.
Right.
yeah, I mean, he brought like Richard Milles and a lot of Rolexes, and if I would have told him, he would have brought all high end stuff. But I just wanted to make it know your audience, right? A lot of people like Panerai and Rolexes that are in our community, so he brought a lot of those. But I mean, even picking these vendors, for the most case, I pick my friends. You know what I mean? So for the most case, if someone's known to be a really popular maker and they make a ton of money on the secondary, but if they're a shithead, I don't invite them. So, at the detriment of the show, because, I try my best to protect the makers as well, so.
Yeah, I didn't get a ton of time. I don't know how. It's still not to walk around. But when I did, I cruised around with the kids, and everybody was like extremely generous with like, here's some stickers. I mean, I was just kind of like, all right, let's calm down, kids. You got too much shit already. Everyone was just very good. And I saw quite a few families there.
Yeah, I mean, Brian Efros, he brought Slinkies to give away to kids. I mean, it was just like amazing, right? And so
that's fun.
Very family oriented show, and it was awesome. My kid showed up and started walking around saying that he's my son, so he can get a bunch of free stuff. I was like, oh my God.
Working it.
Yeah. But he got, Bali Song trainer and all these amazing collectors start buying him stuff. I'm like, stop, don't do it. Buying him little fidget toys. And, I think he bought Chris Lee, right? He's a collector as well. He bought my son like a $90 like fidget toy that's made out of Zerk. And he's like 8, 9.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, and so, it was very, family oriented. Terrazula's made marshmallow roasters for the beach. And they brought like grocery bags full of like stuff to make s'mores. Right. And so, I mean, those marshmallow roasters were a hit. I was like, this is amazing.
100%. That was like
Shout
the
out to
coolest
Bob
thing.
and Sue's. Absolutely.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure if the beach thing was going to go off or not, or man, when it did, holy shit, it was cool.
Yeah, you made it.
That was very cool.
Pretty pathetic fire, but it turned out to be okay at the end.
What'd you say? Like a 3x3 was all you can do or something?
I know, but then it was in the beginning there was like a fire building competition, and Michael's fire wasn't that great. But
Best.
I mean,
He's gonna have to go back to Boy Scout camp.
No, that beach was wild at night. It turned into Lost Boys for sure. You look around and like there's all these fire pits, and the fireworks start going off, and you're like, oh shit.
The muscle dude with the saxophone, it was great.
He didn't show.
Yeah, the thing was, we originally was planning on meeting at the beach at 7 when the show closed, but it was still pretty bright out. The summertime, especially, in June. June is like during summer solstice. I mean, you'll have light out to past 10 sometimes, 10 p.m. And and so, we kind of decided to start the fires a little bit later, probably around 8:20-ish. And then we just, caught a glimpse of a beautiful sunset. It was nice sharing that with you, Michael.
It was.
Our spouses weren't there. They were getting ice cream or something.
McGinnis ran towards it with his phone out.
And yeah, it was absolutely gorgeous, where people cheered when the sun went down. It was funny. But then we started our fires, and again, it was just so much fun. That's when like all the beer and alcohol and s'mores came out, and it was just a really good time. It just, reminded me of the gathering early on. And, that was very pivotal to me as a collector and a maker, right? That's where I met you, Sean, right? That's where I started my knife making career. Yeah. And you just kind of miss the excitement of what it used to be sometimes. And that was exactly what it was. And, I had people come up and they were crying because they had so much fun at the show and said how beautiful the coast was. And, even talking to old collectors, right? Because nowadays at these shows, you'll have the old collectors and now the newer generation. And the old collectors were like, wow, this felt like when I first started collecting knives and started going to the old USN gathering shows. And now to these younger makers, this is going to be like the benchmark of what they compare other shows to, like how we did with the gathering. And so it was pretty special, man. And when I think about it, it's hard for me to not get emotional because, first off, Nick and I pulled it off somehow, but then we got what we wanted to do, right? And so it was amazing, and people begged us to do it again at Seaside. And so we don't know yet, we have to make a decision pretty soon if we're going to do another one or where we're going to do it. But, I mean, the convention center was
the thing. I don't know. That's like the thing we've been chasing for a long time. You know, and that's why I'm always asking, like, where's everyone staying? What are we doing? Because I want everyone in a central place, because I don't get to hang out much at a show. I'm behind the table. I don't get to chat. And that was exactly like you said, some of those early shows where there's groups of people, you're new to it, you don't really know a lot of people, but there's pods of people talking, and you can hop into any pod that you wanted to, even if they don't know your name, introduce yourself. And these could become friends that you have for the rest of your life. And that's how some of us have met, just these random places at these shows.
Yep.
And that's what it felt like. And I implore you to have that again.
Yeah, I mean, what other show is the beach like 2 blocks away from the venue where you can just go and play in the ocean and come back and get drawn for a lottery if you so choose to do that. But
yeah,
I mean, it was so close to the beach, right? And I don't think there's anywhere else where you can kind of do fires like that, right?
No.
And so it was a very special thing as far as like having all those people out there, and everyone was so excited and joyous, and you know, the fires were great, right? So it started getting a little bit chilly at night, but the fires just kind of got rid of all that. And it was awesome. You know, I didn't expect it to turn out as good as it did, you know, but definitely got the warm fuzzies from how much people loved it. And I tried to stay out there as late as I could, but I probably stayed out till 11:30 or something like that at night. And there were still a ton of people out there when I left, and people coming back from, you know, dropping stuff off at their room. And it's crazy. I don't know how long they went. So
I don't know. We had the kids, of course, so we kind of had to head back a little early, but they were being crazy out there, just running around on sand like they never felt sand before.
Somebody took a picture with the sun starting to come up. There was a group of people out there. Someone posted it in the group. I'm not sure who it was. But there's a group of people that stayed out.
Oh,
wow.
Cool. Oh boy.
Yep.
Wow.
I think the thing you said, Nick, about a destination show, that it makes a lot of sense, right? When you think about shows that we've talked about that people had a really, really fun time at, or that just had more to do than just the knife show, right? Like, I think that's why the Nashville show was so successful, right? There's stuff to do there, right? So we're going to go do the show. And, you know, if I want to bring family and they have no interest in the knife show, guess what? There's a bunch of other stuff to do, right? And for some people, right, or a lot of people, the Vegas thing is that way. So that's, you know, another destination show kind of thing. Some of them are harder, right? Like, okay, I talked to Amy before about, hey, you want to go to Blade Show? She's like, well, I don't really care about the show. I'm like, well, there's a pool and there's a mall across the way, right? I mean, there is really cool stuff to do in Atlanta, but then she's got to get in an Uber and team up with somebody and head off somewhere. Yeah. So being able to have it all together in one spot, I think can be really attractive, especially if people kind of tweak their what's that weekend going to be like expectations, right?
Yeah. And just, you know, the drive, there's really not even any traffic. There's no traffic in the city. The city can accommodate hundreds of, maybe 1,000 more people. You know, the convention floor manager said that in the summer, you know, some days they get 25,000 people coming into the city. And so, you know, the infrastructure is there. So, you know, plenty of restaurants. There's no crazy wait times and things like that. And again, there's no traffic, you know. So if they wanted to head back to Portland, it's like an hour and a half away. You know, sometimes when you go to Blade Show Atlanta and you're trying to get from the airport to the show, it's like 45 minutes sometimes, right, with traffic. So it's only a little bit longer than that. So it's like, in perspective, you know, if the drive really bothers you, then maybe the show isn't for you, right? And maybe because a lot of times the shows, you know, should be about more than just greed, right? More than just money and flipping things and trying to win a knife, right? And you know, as a lot of people mature as collectors, they just collect the things they like or collect the things that their friends make, right? And so maybe the show is not really for you if you have a problem driving an hour and a half, right? And sharing experience with all these people. And that's fine, right? And so there's plenty of other shows out there. But I'm guaranteeing you that you're not going to get a free knife at those shows. So.
Well played. Well played.
That's right.
And let's not forget the very special guest you had.
Oh,
Indeed.
Awesome.
Yeah, Michael Walker.
Ooh.
Having Michael Walker there is really, really cool.
Yeah.
one of the highlights. One of the highlights of the show was when Michael Walker butt dialed me, and I was like, Michael Walker's ass called me,
Wow.
and he was like, "Did I call you or you call me?" I was like, "Oh, it was you," and he was like, "Oh yeah," and so it was. I mean, he is the nicest guy, you know, a hero to a lot of makers, along with myself, and yeah, wow, what a humble, amazing guy, you know, and he brought a knife too, which was crazy.
Yeah. It was wild. You know, he's one of those guys that I get all stumbly mouthed and mumble mouthed around. He's just like, he's that guy to me, you know, and to a lot of us.
I remember I used to be that guy for you, Michael.
I mean, it was so humble, and you know, the Wi-Fi password was Meet Michael Walker because I wanted to, you know, give him his dues, and so like, and when I told him that, he was just like, "Oh no, not again." I guess they do it to him all the time, you know. But I mean, the man should be respected. A lot of makers don't know who he is, right? And I'm like, every one of you makers making frame locks, ye owe this man money, right? Because he's making stuff out of titanium when there's no internet, right? Like, it was like, where do you find titanium? Like, you just call around and ask Boeing or something like that and tell them what you want to do, and they think you're a crazy person, right?
We actually had a long talk with him about the titanium back in the day. McGinnis and myself and Caesar and Franny were talking to him, and he was talking about where in the hell he found titanium. It was pretty wild.
Crazy, you know? But yeah, like, you know, a man that invented multiple different locking mechanisms and, you know, is known to be the most expensive knife maker in the world, right, at this point. And I think one of his knives sold for like $275,000 or something like that. And man, he's so humble, and you wish that all knife makers were like that, right?
Yeah.
So
that's the best part about Michael Walker to me is it's like, okay, he's without question super legend status, right? And you walk up to him, like I had this experience at the what's the name of that show that we were at, Michael? That little boutique show in Nashville that Steve Delac put on.
Metal and Arts.
Art and Metals.
Arts and
Art
Metal.
and Metal. Yeah.
So I walk up to him at the AIM show and I introduce myself. He didn't know me from anybody, or I'm just some dude that's there. And I start asking him questions about this knife that he has on his table, how it works. Oh, hey, this is really cool. How did you do that? And yeah, just the most down to earth, super cool, humble, happy to talk about any of it. Like so much nicer than a bunch of new full of themselves makers that I've talked to, right? Who don't have the time of day for you or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm nobody. They don't have to have the time of day for me, but you're trying to sell me something? Please fuck you, right? Like I don't need that. Right. I'll go buy some shit from somebody else. And Michael Walker, okay, I can't afford a Michael Walker knife. I would love to, but the fact that he is so cool and just chill about everything and happy to talk with you and excited, right? I was asking him about little details on his knife. He was excited that someone was asking him about it, is what it felt like. And that's just so awesome. Just
that's super refreshing.
Cool person.
Yeah. And like, you know, our show was like kind of out of his element, right? Because he mostly does these art shows.
Yeah.
But from what I was told, he was like the same guy, whether he's there or here. And, you know, he brought a knife that sold for $27,500 and, you know, instant sold, you know, and so it's like, you know, they say not to meet your heroes, but man, he's amazing human being for sure.
Yeah. I'm okay with that one.
A hero worth meeting for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out more when he joins us on Mark of the Maker.
Oh yeah.
Nice. Fingers crossed.
Nice.
But I also think, like, for me personally, I felt like I met a lot of new people that I hadn't met before. I guess it was a regional thing or something. I don't know.
Totally. There were a bunch of people that that's a lot of feedback I got, was people who are from the Pacific Northwest, that all of them said the same thing, which was finally a show around here. Super excited. And there's a big customer base here. Idaho, Washington, Oregon, NorCal, so Canada. So very cool.
Yeah, don't get us wrong. There's the show in Eugene still, but that's more like, Luke Swenson style knives, right? Trash. All right.
Wow.
So,
There it
no, I'm
is.
just kidding. No, but
Edit.
it's no, leave it. Keep it in there. No, I love Luke. But no, like I remember when Blade Show West came to Portland, and basically like Shane Seibert, right? That's how you say his last name, by the way, guys. Shane,
Good to know.
He walked around and nobody knew who he was. So it was definitely not a similar market, right? So
Yeah.
if a tactical maker goes to the Eugene show, he might not sell anything. So for once, we wanted to kind of do a really cool tactical knife show here, where it's at a time where it's not conflicting with other shows. And I think one of the biggest reasons why Blade West failed here was because they did it like 2 weeks before California Custom, which specializes in tactical folders. So there was definitely a market here, but I think people kind of came from all over. But it was definitely a lot of regional people for sure. People from Idaho, Montana, Colorado kind of areas that will travel up here, and a lot of people from Canada and Washington, and obviously California. Yeah, it was really cool. I've met a ton of people that I've never met before either. A lot of new collectors for sure.
Yeah, and as a maker, I love that, because that's kind of the point of the show, is you want to get them in the hands of people that have never seen them before and talk to them, and I don't know,
Sure.
that's important to me.
I think last year in your show Facebook group, I saw a lot of the same feedback, even last year, that Nick was talking about, right? Where there was clearly a strong local presence, right? That was hungry for the show like this to happen. And when it did, it's like, woo, let's go.
Yeah.
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 And I think the last thing that I'll say, that I was happy to hear, because I feel like I did an interview with Jade for his Knife Joy channel, and Jade pointed out that a lot of feedback he was hearing was the relaxed environment of the show, and I told Jade in that interview, one of the phrases or terms I heard a lot was laid back, and how laid back the show felt. And to me, that's really important, I consider myself a pretty laid back dude. I consider Billy a laid back dude, and a lot of our friends. I mean, of course, everyone's got their thing, but having a laid back environment in a knife show, I think is a cool thing. That made me happy to hear that. That made me happy to hear that that's the kind of feedback that I got from numerous people. To me, that's a success.
Yeah, it's easy for shows to get stressful, both for makers
100%.
and for collectors, right?
Absolutely.
I
Yep.
remember being at TKI with Michael in the Vegas TKI, where it was like, there's like this limited amount of time. The collectors in the room have these books. They're ripping tickets out of books and trying to put them in bags. And people are like literally sweating, stressed out, running around, trying to get tickets in bags. And I'm like, is that fun? I mean, it's freaky to watch, because I was on helping Michael out at his table. I wasn't there as a buyer, and it was like, holy shit. It's just wild to see people stressed out. And I've absolutely felt that at shows before as well, right? Where it's like, oh, I got to be here. I got to be over in that spot. I got to go do this. I got like my list of shit I got to do. And to be able to just go to a show, right? Like, hey, my friends are here. I'm going to hang out with my friends. And if I get something great, and if I don't, I don't. But it's easy to get caught in the little rat race version of it. So I think the laid back environment helps a lot.
I think one thing that we would change if we do it again is that we will shorten the show. We'll condense it a little bit. It was a long show, and we could have probably knocked a couple hours off of it. So I think that's one thing that's one little data point I think we could tweak.
Yeah. How long was the show?
So we advertised it from 11 to 7.
Oh, wow.
And there were some people that stayed to the not to the end, but there was people that hung around for a long time. But I think we could have ended it 11-5 or something like that. I think that's
Right.
that's something that we'll go back and talk about. But I think Billy and I talked a little bit about it after the show, and like, yeah, we could shorten this up a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Leave a little more time for dinner, between dinner and bonfire time.
Exactly.
You better get that shit done by 5. Birch eats at 5. There's no
Bert
fucking
eats
around.
dinner at 4:30.
Shit. I don't eat lunch at knife shows. So, yeah, I get pretty hungry.
He gets hangry.
You don't want to see a hangry Birch.
When we talked about the laid back nature of the show, I think a lot of this also like the power of the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in a very urban environment, right, where everyone's in a rush trying to get to work or wherever, and it's a big concrete jungle. And then when you come to Oregon and you drive through these massive trees where it looks like anywhere from Narnia to Endor, right? It's gives a calming effect where, you're like, I don't care if I'm not, going 30 miles over the speed limit, right? I don't care if the cars in front of me is a little slow, because you get to kind of enjoy nature, and there's like a calming thing to seeing nature. So I think that has a lot to do with the Pacific Northwest for sure.
Yeah, man, it was great. I mean, we saw all the waterfalls last year, and this year was up in Washington, looking at all the, Hall of Moss and all that fun stuff. And it was cool.
I have to say, I think I've talked about this on the show a couple times, but when Amy and I were doing the Vegas show, she was like, we should do something else too, right? Like, we're going across the country. We should attach something to it, because she's not like a Vegas kind of person. And I'm not really either. But, you can do the restaurants and spend a night on the strip seeing people being crazy. And then it's like, all right, I'm out. Mm-hmm. So she was like, we got to get out of here and do something else. And when we started doing that and hooking excursions on that were 2, 3, 4, 5 days long, that was super cool, right? And a really nice way to really take advantage of what you're already going to do as far as travel costs and all that stuff, right? Even from a practical perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Like, we're already here. Let's go do something really cool.
Yeah.
And those are the best times. We've always had a great time doing that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, having that kind of memory linked to a knife show, you'll kind of remember it forever, And so, yeah, it somehow worked, man. I'm still kind of like reveling in it and meditating about what went down and how we can change it and make it better somehow. And a lot of brainstorming to do if Nick and I do it again. So.
All right.
But we do appreciate everybody that came and supported, everybody that did that and helped make it what it was. So thank you to everybody that came out and spent some time with us. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, a big thanks to Derek and his crew too. I mean, they were as usual just giving away stuff and being super generous and just
as always.
Craziness.
Yeah, I did my first collaboration with Steel Flame. I did a knife with Derek, and that was like a big honor because I've always been a fan of Steel Flame, and just their generosity and humility is just legendary, right? And so,
indeed,
what an honor it was to be able to sell a collaboration knife that I did with him at the show.
That was well done, too, man.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, I just saw pictures, but it looked cool.
Yeah, and I'd also like to shout out Good Art Hollywood, Josh and Rachel. They're pretty incredible people. That's the first time I got to meet them. I've been texting back and forth with Josh, the owner, over the months, and man, just great people. So I appreciate them as well. Everybody, but I just want to make sure and drop their name.
Right. I forgot to mention Tactical Elements, AJ over there in Canada. He donated a ton of knives for there were Jason Knight collaboration fixed blades, little neckers, and I think he sent like 40 of them, and they're pretty awesome. And another generous person that kind of grew up in our generation, a big USN guy. And so it was great to see him.
AJ's the best. Absolutely.
Yeah. So big shout outs to him as well.
Pretty sure one of my kids got one of those.
Nice.
Yeah. That may end up with me, if you know what I'm
He
saying.
did a Goonies bat with RMJ, which was insane.
I saw that, yeah.
Oh my God. I had to get one. I was like, I know I said I won't enter any lotteries, but I got to get one of those bats, man. And so fortunately, I waited for other people to buy them. And then when there was a lull, a few hours later after the show, I went and got one. So
nice.
pretty stoked about it. If you were to hit a baseball, that thing would probably crack in half. But it looks cool. That's all that matters. You won't be fighting zombies with a Goonies bat for sure.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about what didn't go well? Don't get me started, he said.
No. I mean, I have to deal with a lot of makers and sometimes, established makers that I invite to the show. A lot of them, some of them have egos, right? I won't say a lot of them, some of them have egos, but if someone no call, no shows, it really grinds my gears, right? Because I have to explain to their fans that are expecting to see them why they aren't there. And they're obviously not upset at me, but just the disappointment in their faces, it just kind of brings you down, right? And so I would say, I'm going to say this straight up. If a maker no call, no shows, they don't care about you, buy something else. Don't buy their stuff anymore, right? So I don't care, man. So it's like, so that's just what I'm saying. And so, a little common courtesy goes a long way. And, it's just to be a decent human being, right? And so, and I think a lot of times it might be because these established makers, they don't have to pay a table price, that they might not treat it like a regular show. Or they might think, oh, it's nothing. It's no big deal if I just drop it. But as long as you call me and say, hey, I can't make it, I don't even care what the issue is. Just let me know so I can let your people know. I mean, just like regular, I digress. I already ranted a few days ago. But
it's grown up shit. Be grown up.
Right. So
common courtesy.
Yeah. And Tom still hasn't apologized for it.
Can you believe that?
Right. This was the only show that I said Tom could come brown bag. And he's like, no, I'm good. I'm too good for you. I know he didn't say that. I'm just kidding. But no,
I have to.
We really wish Tom was there, but life happens, and that's okay. Like I said, if you just called and said, "Hey, I can't make it," and I can be like, "Cool, I don't even care what the reason is. Just say you can't make it, and that's 100% fine."
Yeah.
And so it's those people that think their shit don't stink, right? That's what I always say. That if you think you've made it as a knife maker, and you have that attitude, you're gonna fail. And so, they're not going to be invited back to the show, and even if they paid, I'll say no. So, yeah, it's that's some of the things you deal with, when as a show promoter, showrunner, and you have to deal with vendors and knife makers. Like I said, we all have something a little crazy to do this job, but I mean, be a decent human being, and you won't piss me off so much. I'm just kidding.
I mean, even if you don't care about pissing off Billy, I think the reality is we know for a fact, because I've been in this situation before, you're going to a show and there's really one maker whose stuff you're chasing, right? Or that you're interested in, or that you want to see, or you saw a piece online, you really want to see it in person. And there's one maker that's driving that to happen. And then showing up and finding out, oh, surprise, they're not here. And nobody knew, nobody communicated that, right? That sucks. That's like National Lampoon Vacation showing up at Wally World and it's closed, right? Like, what the fuck is that?
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, maybe there aren't a ton of people that are one maker people, but I'll never forgive Michael Birch.
Never.
I mean, some of these guys were camping out 12 hours before the show. It's like,
yeah,
man, treat your customers with some respect, and it's like, I don't understand some of these makers, man. It's like, yeah, like I said, go shop somewhere else. So
I think another thing that we could tighten up, and this is not something that the attendees would know. It wouldn't have affected them anyway, but Billy and I are a little bit Neanderthalish when it came to how we organized everything. Both our wives chastised us on how we organized some of the the labeling envelopes and how we did the badges. We had custom leather badges made for the show for the VIPs, and just little things, organizational things that we could definitely tighten up. And trust and believe that Esther and Terry, the true bosses, let us know their disappointment, and nothing like having your wife disappointed in you. So duly noted, and we'll work on that next time.
I try to tell my wife we were tortured artists, and no,
she wasn't having it.
No, did not fly.
I got the smooth eye roll emoji.
Yes.
I just got blasted on social media. She just posted pictures of, how Nick and I suck at organizing
I
stuff.
did see that. I've got a bone to pick. I forgot about that.
I think you guys did a good job. I think it went pretty well.
Oh, they fixed everything. That's why. They stepped in and was like, out of the way, idiots. And took charge. And, that's really my wife's forte. She's very organized, where I'm just, scatterbrained most of the time. And so I'm sure most nice wives are like that. Yeah. So, or artists' wives. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But one thing I do want to say is to me, Billy and I are both super family oriented guys, and to have our families there with us, and I had my daughters and my wife helping, and he had his sons and his wife, and Billy and I are good friends, and the fact that we both have super tight knit families, that made this a really beautiful thing for me. Is that just the family vibe between his family and my family? We're business partners, of course, but outside of being business partners, we're just friends, and our wives get along. And, so to me, that's a very cool part of it is just the environment, how we all work together, and me being able to have my family there. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's fun. Having your family at a show is fun. I've gotten to enjoy that a few times.
Yep.
Even last year?
Even last year,
Yep.
Nick remembers.
Stop it, Mark. Stop. Stop getting me in trouble.
Sorry.
Cullen, stop crying.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Billy didn't remember me.
But I got
I do remember your kids, because they're selling those CRKT knives for like open bids. They're little wooden knives.
Yeah, they were
little hustlers,
making them.
Little hustlers.
Yeah,
they tried to do that again today.
They were setting up
this
all the
this year
and flipping it.
Mm-hmm.
But last year was such a blur, man. It was so chaotic. Again, like we were taking the trash out middle of the shows, and it was just like dealing with the food trucks, and it was just like we hardly had a chance to. I mean, I think Sean and I maybe talked at the beginning of the show, and maybe you and I talked once, Birch.
Yeah.
And then, some of the makers that showed up last year, like Richard Rogers, I didn't even say a single word to him the whole show. I didn't even say hi. It was just like, it was so chaotic last year. And
there was a lot to do. There was a lot to do throughout the entire show.
Yeah. And so it was, and again, we were the ones striking tables, and, a lot of other makers like Marsh and Sean, they helped us get rid of tables and fold them up and chairs after the show. So it was just I don't know if you did or not. I don't remember seeing you there, or your family, apparently. But yeah, it was just definitely a change of pace, where I was able to even walk around and making sure that you guys were okay, and kind of just soaking in more of the show, as opposed to like trying to take out the trash, So it was definitely a better experience for Nick and I, for sure. So
What was the size of the venue room like? Was it like a New York show kind of size, or smaller than that?
Yeah. It was about like that.
About like New York show.
Billy, 14,000, 15,000 square feet? Had a little annex off to the side.
Yeah. I've never been to New York show, but I'm signed up to go next year. So another thing, just like how you said you came to the Pacific Northwest to meet some new people and new customers, I think I'm going to do the same and go to New York this year. So, but yeah, it was around probably 14 to 16,000 square foot, I believe. Yeah. But there was a large foyer where people lined up outside the convention center at night, and we opened up the doors at 9, and we lined up people inside the foyer. And so it was plenty of space inside that lobby area, for sure. And that's where restrooms were, and restrooms weren't trashed. There was still plenty of paper towels and toilet paper, and there was a snack bar there that served, little snacks, and they had burgers and hot dogs. So I guess it would be considered a meal, but not a good meal, right? But and beer and wine, and beers were like $6, so it wasn't too crazy. But I was also telling people to bring their own beer and whiskey, and what show promoter would tell you to sneak in beer to their show, you know? And so it was that was the kind of vibe we had. Like, yeah, bring bourbon, whiskey, whatever you want to do, sneak it in, just don't make a mess. And there wasn't, at the end of the show, there wasn't a single piece of trash on the floor, which is insane. Not a single scrap of paper, nothing, not a single maker card or business card or sticker on the floor, which was crazy.
And Questenberry had a little, he had some sort of, I think it was a good bourbon. I don't know bourbons, but he had little plastic cups, little single shot things for people to take.
There you go.
Yeah, he had an Eagle Rare 10-year, I think. And he gave me a bottle of Weller, which is pretty cool.
I think that kind of size show, like the New York show, or like you said, the early Vegas show stuff, they were nice size, right? I mean, you're not overwhelmed by the room. Somehow I still never get around to every table, but you know, it's just, it doesn't feel overwhelming. And maybe, you know, combine that with, like you said, the chill environment and people that were being cool. That's a win.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and I only see it growing if we continue to do it. And so I think, you know, hopefully every year we can make it better. And I was like, I mean, how can we make it better next year with everything we've done? I was like, I need to get a dunk tank and put Tom Crine in there. Right.
He won't show up.
I have sat in a dunk tank before.
That's how you make your money right there.
Yeah. Pay $20 to throw a ball. Yeah.
Filled with chunks of pack of wood.
That could hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we also had a photo booth in there that people didn't know about. But yeah.
Yeah.
But we wanted to see how we can make it better, you know? And so
I think all VIP members should get a free access to Michael's Feet OnlyFans.
Oh,
Feet in the Sand OnlyFans. I think we should maybe do that. Exclusive
I
content.
actually signed him up for footfinder.com.
Food out my baby's mouths.
oh my God.
Posting them free photos.
Mm-hmm.
oh boy.
I was like, I got to figure out how much it costs to book Chris Elliott so I could bring him and Michael and have him meet and maybe Tom too.
I'm going to go on a limb and I guess that you could get Chris Elliott cheap.
I hope so.
Probably less than me.
I'm just guessing.
If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you can Google Chris Elliott and that's,
And Michael Birch.
Yeah.
What was his name? Woogie?
Woogie.
Woogie. That's what it was.
He's the guy that had the small hand in the scary movies where you know who you're talking about.
So that you know, that's a really interesting question. And this is something I'm interested to hear what you guys think. There's always, I think with something that's successful, there's a temptation to want to make it bigger, but maybe you lose something if you make it bigger. Maybe not. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? What's your longer term vision? Is the idea, I mean, I know you're still trying to decide if you can do it next year, but is there an interest in growing it and making it bigger, or maybe just trying to fine tune the details?
You know, with me, I basically, at my old work in Vegas where I built custom AKs, Rifle Dynamics, we did an open house every year. And every year I was like, we got to make it bigger and bigger and bigger and better. And at the end, like, you know, it was like, again, a ton of giveaways. I had a airsoft shoot house and it was just like so ridiculous. But then I was always faced with the pressure of making it better the next year. And so I think that's just my mindset where I'm like, how can we make it better? Not necessarily bigger, but a better experience or a cool experience. And so I'm always wrestling around with that where, you know, I don't care if it's bigger. I just want it to be better. Cause I'm afraid, you know, deep down inside, one of my deep dark secrets is, you know, I'm afraid that it'll become stagnant where it's just like, you know, there's so many shows that are out there. There's a show every month and a lot of those shows are stagnant. So I feel like if we ever got stagnant, I probably won't want to do it again. So it's always a challenge to myself to try to make it better somehow. Right. And so, but I don't know about Nick because we haven't really discussed it. And I mean,
I wasn't there, just on the outside looking in,
What?
sadly.
What?
But I don't think you have to make it better. It sounds like the beach thing, it's going to be different every year. And that right there sounds like such a special time that it's better than everything else already. So, I mean, just looking on from the outside in, you've already won. So,
Next year I'm buying thousands of dollars worth of fireworks to fire off there. That's already in the plans if we do it. I'm going to start.
that's crazy.
The craziest fireworks we could find, we'll get them. So, but yeah, no, I don't know about Nick as far as like that, but I always have the pressure to make it more cool, and so that's always been in my nature to try to do stuff like that. And I mean, Nick and I, he can probably tell you, we were just like, we were struggling because a lot of people thought our venue last year was super cool, right? As far as aesthetics wise,
Right.
and having it at a convention center was super sterile looking, basically, right? So even there's a giant stage on the show floor this year, and I was like, dude, should we hire a b-boy? Should we get an artist to paint something? Should we get a magician? Just trying to like make it more exciting, and should we have Nick play? Or it was just all these ideas to trying to make the show a better experience for the people attending. And ultimately we said, no, everyone just wants to talk to each other. How awkward would it be if someone's trying to do a lotto and then a magician shows up? Can I have your attention, please?
Limp Bizkit's playing in the back.
Yeah, and so, a lot of these knife shows they play loud music. It's really hard to not shout when it's so loud in there and people are excited. And so we decided not to do any of those options. But again, I'm always brainstorming to see how I can make it better and a cool experience. And a dunk tank would be amazing, right? Piranhas with Tom Grine in there with the striped onesie on, right?
I don't know about piranhas. I mean,
Hey, whoa.
if I was there, I'd be down. Not piranhas.
What about you, Nick? What about growing the show, making it better, different, or just kind of fine tuning?
So I'm always very attracted to the kind of the smaller, more intimate shows. And I wouldn't say by any means this show was big. I'd say this was, it wasn't a micro show, but it was probably on the smaller side compared to a lot of shows that happen.
Yeah.
And I guess my biggest concern is, and Billy and I have talked about this quite a bit as we've kind of between last show and this show, and we'll have more conversations moving forward. But I think my biggest thing is I don't want it to turn into like a Blade type environment. And there always is pressure if something comes off well to want to one up it. I think what I do for a living as a performer, I think I've kind of learned to understand that each event is going to be special in its own way. And the event that if we do it again, maybe it's not going to be exactly the same as this, but there's going to be something about it that's going to be cool for that time and that moment. And I think I kind of take the attitude of, trust the process and trust that how we plan it is we're giving it our all. So as long as we give it our all, it's going to come off successful. There's always going to be something we can't control, people that don't show up or whatever the issues are. But just trust the process and trust that our instincts are right. And, it's a learning process. We're going to take something from this. We're going to learn, we've talked about a couple of things earlier that we can fine tune and, just make it a better show. And maybe that better isn't noticed by the people that are there. Maybe it's noticed by us, behind the scenes. Maybe something went smoother or whatever. And I do agree that the beach is a very cool thing afterwards. And maybe next year, if we did it out there, maybe there'd be a weather. Maybe, there's things we can't control, but it would still be cool. Like we'd still make it make it great, even if it isn't exactly the same. Something else would be better than it was this year. So that's how I'm looking at it, so if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You guys have a real good glimpse of Nick and I's artistic personalities, right there. Because, as a knife maker, we're always trying to do like crazy stuff out the box, trying to outdo our previous knives, right? And we're chasing that all the time. And Nick is a performer where, consistency and all that is key, right? And so it's kind of an interesting glimpse into our personality, for sure.
I was about to say, sometimes people just want consistency. Just sometimes these shows, they try to get bigger and bigger, and that's kind of what kills them too.
Oh, 100%. That's kind of what I'm getting at is, if it's always, if we're always trying to one up ourselves, all of a sudden you can find yourself not enjoying it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And
guilty.
We're in this because we love it.
Yep.
We love it. And everybody on this podcast right now knows what that feels like in our own specific genres or whatever. So to me, the most important thing is that as Billy and I, continue this journey, that we keep in mind the love and passion we have for the community, and make sure we still have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Easy to wreck something you love by letting it turn into a business or a job. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
if you're not
and
careful.
too much pressure kills anything. Too much
Exactly.
pressure, breaks rocks. I mean, that's
Yep.
what we don't want, so yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, okay, so the beach was this super cool and wonderful thing. And if it had rained, right? Like if you built the whole thing around beach party after the show next year, and then right, it's downpour or something. Oops. Right. I mean, I don't know. That's all that kind of stuff.
Well,
is a tough call to make, I think, right?
it's a tough call to make, but this is going to be a regional response that I give you. People in the Pacific Northwest are not afraid of the rain at the beach.
Right.
And so if it was raining at the beach, then we would have big, if there was forecast for rain, we would have brought big pop-up tents, just simple fold-out tents and lit bonfires, and it would have been great. And people do that. In the Pacific Northwest, the rain is nothing, and the rain will not stop a beach day no matter what's going on.
There you go.
So that would have been a whole different environment that would have been cool. Like people would have been
sure.
oh man, it's raining. But then we pop out the pop-up tents, light the fires, and it would have been great. So,
Yeah. It typically doesn't rain in the summer in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Yeah. But the only thing I'd be concerned about would be wind. But
Yeah.
YOLO, right? And so if it does rain, easier to make sandcastles. So
There you go.
yeah.
Making dunes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Somebody was. We walked past some that were like, my kids were like, "Did you see that?" And I'm like, "What in the hell?" It was like a mermaid or something, and growing out of the sand, and he was giving lessons or something, I guess, earlier in the day. Like how to build these crazy sandcastles and shit.
That sounds very Pacific Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I noticed is that, we had a couple of attendees that were like super Portlandish, right? They had crazy hair and piercings, and I spoke to them, and they obviously had different genders and sexual orientations, but it was just like they were so happy to be there, which was kind of like weird, because our community is typically so closed off, and we always made fun of Nick because he was like the only black guy in our community, right? Right. And so it was just kind of interesting to see how like things can change like that, and how different people can become potentially your best customers in the future. So but yeah, that was the interesting thing about this show. I saw
to that point,
yeah.
Billy, I think our group is, if people from the outside looking in, they would not think we were very accepting, but I think that our group is very accepting of pretty much everyone.
Sometimes.
In my experience.
Very much so. I would agree with that.
I mean, we just don't care. As long as you like knives and you want to hang out and talk, it's awesome.
What was good perspective was talking to the gun people that came to the show, as far as the gun vendors. They were just so shocked. Like, people are so nice. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
They're not trying to rip off your designs like a lot of other gun manufacturers do. They're like, they were just so happy to like be able to like see stuff, and they were so excited. And for them, right, me coming from that world where it's super cutthroat and someone's always trying to take something that you made and change it 20%, and so they can make it themselves and make a profit. It was very refreshing and eye-opening for the entire gun people that was there. So, but yeah, it's very, and for the longest time, I always said that I love the knife community more than the gun community. And a lot of that is because of that. And so, the gun industry is very large and not very intimate. You make good friends there, but for the most part, a lot of companies are trying to screw each other over and steal from each other. And for the most part, that doesn't really happen in the knife community. It does sometimes, right? Right. Guys that take pictures and send them overseas, and you get knockoffs and stuff like that. But it's usually if you're friends with another maker that's top of their game, and if you're top of the game, you guys aren't trying to rip each other off, right? And so, but yeah, it's a very accepting community, and yeah, it doesn't look like it for sure.
Well, and I think there's stereotypes of every group, right? And certainly there are plenty of examples of knife community that look an awful lot like a good chunk of the gun community, right? When I was doing competitive pistol stuff, it was at times I would say, wow, this is super fun. The only thing that would make it better if there was less gun people around.
Yeah, 511s, right, everywhere.
Well, just, everybody's an expert, and there's only one way to do stuff and whatever. Okay, we have that, some of that in the knife community too, right? But I think we have this kind of slice of it here that is a lot less like that. I like to think. Maybe it's really not, but it feels like it is. It's less like that, and I really enjoy that, right? And I met people through competitive shooting who were just super cool people, who it was fun, and it was something they enjoyed, and it didn't have to be about, you're an idiot and I'm smarter and whatever. They just came to shoot and enjoy the experience. But so I don't know, maybe it's just more of a human being thing than anything else. But
all you got to do is look at the comments of some gun influencer. It's freaking hilarious. Man, everyone's an expert. It's hilarious. Even like there's one guy that's he makes parody videos and joke videos about the gun industry, and then people think it's real. It's hilarious. Yeah. Like he'll try to reload a AR like an AK, and people are like, "What are you doing? You're not doing that right." Blah blah blah.
You talking about the Firepower United guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, his shit cracks me up.
Yeah, and so it's man, it's such a weird the gun industry and all that is so weird. But I mean, for the most part, the knife industry, maybe it's because it's maybe smaller in the custom world, but they just seem maybe less jaded so far. I mean, the gun industry's been around for so long. I don't know.
I think maybe there's you mentioned Jade Marsh earlier, right? And Jade was on the show with us, and I think I really liked the way he said it. Like-minded people finding and hanging out with like-minded people, right? Like when you find your people, it's good, right? And I think for a seemingly growing group of us, right, there's this certain kind of perspective, right, that actually values some of the old school stuff that we all really enjoyed, right, and tries to keep it there, keep it in that place, and that's what we like, right? I mean, that's what makes it fun and enjoyable and something that you can be involved with for years and years, because it's easy to fuck it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Billy.
Yeah.
You throwing shade on my 511 pants?
Whoa.
I mean, yeah. What is this?
What am I supposed to wear,
Tom?
See, in the year 2046, when Tom shows up at the show and Billy's on his 77th generation of, I got to do it better. And Tom walks in and goes, "This sucks." That's going to be the payback time.
I imagine Tom, when he goes shooting, that he wears like 1980s mesh tactical SWAT vest with some 511s with an NRA hat.
That would be cool, but I don't have that.
50 plate carriers.
But I
Triple
literally,
lifetime member.
the only thing I wear is 511, sadly.
Oh,
for
no.
the Apex pants.
It's fine as long as you like it. That's fine.
Yeah. Like we said, we were just talking about how inclusive we are.
We're inclusive.
you
I was
blend-
just about to say, this is an inclusive community.
You blend right into a SHOT Show. You can just go in and be a chameleon.
It's like the Blade Show joke. Oh, where's so and so? Oh, he's the dude in the black T-shirt and khakis over there with the backpack
and a beard.
Right.
It's true.
Yeah. Sean, you had something you wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah. Who else got cool stuff at the show? Because I got cool stuff at the show.
I got cool stuff at the show.
I got cool stuff at the show.
Oh, do tell, fellas.
Then we can talk about cool stuff from the show.
I didn't go to the show.
You and I are out, Tom.
Yeah.
We can go have a crispy, fancy mango seltzer.
It's Kroger brand, damn it. Leave it be.
You got to drink that with your little finger up
Pinky
in the
up.
air.
He's up in all manner.
Yeah, that's right. So tell us about cool shit. Sean, start. Tell us what you got that's cool.
All right, I got cool materials. I cornered the market on the blacktop Damascus. I got 5 good pieces of that.
That's a Billy collab, isn't it?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and a PNWCI exclusive.
Oh,
Right. So Blacktop Damascus was something I did with, it was an idea I shot with John Walker at Alpha Knife Supply. And I said, hey, why don't we do it where it's a heavy Zerk pattern on the top portion of a standard Damascus, where half of it would be like a heavy Zerk pattern, and you could still use the other half of the bar as a lock side still. And so it'll still be standard Damascus on that side. So by doing it, you get such a weird, you have a much unique color profile and things like that. So you can get something that's like, the Zerk on top really black, and then you can buff it, and whatever tie is in there, you can, change it as far as using a voltage thing. So you can have some greens inside there if you wanted to. But it's something that John and I came up with last year, and I think he made like 8 bars and gave me all 8, and I just kind of gave them around to different makers to try. And then, and then Sean really liked it. And so, Alpha asked me again if I wanted to do Black Damascus for the show as an exclusive. And I said, yeah, sure. So whatever doesn't sell at the show, I keep myself, and whoever buys it at the show is all that's out there. So.
Wow. So you're the idea man portion of the collaboration.
Yeah, they do all the hard work. I'm just like, let's just try this. So,
That's a way to do it.
yeah.
Nice. You got some fancy material, Sean. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. Well, I got 2 pieces of black Damascus. And then I went to Knife Handle Supply and picked up some really cool antique and vintage micarta.
Nice.
Yeah. He had a killer selection, man.
So funny story about Knife Maker Supplies. I actually found that guy on Facebook Marketplace.
Really?
And, yeah, he was just selling rods of micarta, and I was like, how much for all of it, right?
Right.
And then so we just started talking after that, and he's like, yeah, I actually collect micarta, and I'm thinking about selling it. And I was like, what do you have? And his prices were super reasonable, and I asked him, I was like, he lived in Washington, so I was like, hey, I'm having a show. You want to come down and have a table? And he's like, yeah. And so this was his first show ever. And so he
That's cool.
Since I met him on Facebook Marketplace, he started getting a decent following on Instagram. I sent followers to his page, and he gets all the rare micartas out there and at a very affordable price. So yeah, and I specifically brought him in as a treat to the makers, so hopefully you can get some of the more rare stuff for a decent price.
Sean's like, that buttery shit, nobody likes that. I'll take that.
Exactly.
$5 a block, man. Come on.
Awesome.
Yeah, dude, his selection was excellent. So much of the good old stinky stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have think my bag had fucking glue in it the way I was huffing.
Oh yeah, he's like smelled his
this
bag.
bag.
Yeah, I was like, oh man, it's like full of cat piss. Perfect.
Cancer and cat piss.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, nice. What else you get, Sean?
I picked up, let's see. Well, for knives, I got a Bowiedemann Les George 1918 trench knife.
Oh, gel.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, it's en route via FedEx right now.
Oh, no, I forgot Andrew was there. I saw pictures of him at the show. I didn't know he was going to be there.
Yeah.
Dude, he brought some cool shit. It was all I could do not to just go over and start throwing more money his way, because I picked up one of the little titanium Fairburn Sox style spikes he makes.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, he had his doughboy knucks, like the quad knuck, and then the single knuck and the double knuck. All his Poppies of War stuff that he had, you know.
Oh, and the saps he's doing.
Yeah.
Dude, those saps are fucking righteous. I'm telling you.
Very cool.
Yeah, Rachel and Shade each got one of his Poppies of War shirts, one of the button-ups.
Nice.
Yep.
Is he licensing out that material for people to make stuff with it, or those patterns?
Yeah.
Or okay, I was going to say, it seemed like I saw people there that were selling bags or some other stuff that had that material, and I'm like, oh, maybe he's licensing it out to people or selling them the material or something.
I believe he is licensing them out for sure.
Yeah.
Because there was another vendor there called Paladin 33.
Yeah.
And they actually do a lot of soft goods with Burnley.
Yeah.
But they had a lot of Poppies of War stuff.
I just got Poppies and War from them.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw what looked like a little dop kit or something that was in that material, or some kind of little bag, right? Organizer bag or something. And yeah, he did them with Luke, right? I saw that collaboration come by on Facebook, and I'm like, whoa, check that out.
Yeah. And I'm actually working on a collab with them as well. So hopefully that'll come out maybe next year, hopefully.
Nice.
Cool.
What else you get?
Yeah.
That's pretty much the long and the short on what I got.
All right. Well, let's go around the room. Nick, what did you get?
I got gifted a very cool 30-inch curb chain from Good Art Hollywood that totally shocked me and blew my mind. So I was super excited about that. Very generous of Josh and Rachel.
Wow.
So
30-inch chain. How do you wear that? You loop it around?
I've got an ample bosom. So
I've got an incredibly
nuzzles
long
nicely.
torso. Yeah, right. Okay.
well, it nuzzles nicely. No, I mean, if I end to end is 30 inches, but it's when I put it around as a necklace, it hangs just right between the breastises. So it's I was really grateful for that.
Very nice.
And AJ, our brother AJ from Tactical Elements had some cool little things he gave me. Gave me a little. It looks like a pen, but it's actually a knife. And apparently, I was talking to Luke Burnley about it. Luke was super excited. Big shout out to Luke for just coming through the hang. That was very cool.
Nice.
But he was super excited about him. I turned around and AJ stuck one in my hand. So very cool. And then of course he gave me a little Mountie moose stuffed animal that I'm required to wear in my chest rig on a SAR mission apparently. So I guess I'll have to get a photo of that. I've actually been away from the team for the summer just because music's been so busy. But once I get back to it, I will definitely carry said moose on a mission and get photo evidence.
Here's me with the moose picking up some lady with a jacked up leg on the side of the mountain.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna happen.
Nice. I think we talked about that pen knife thing before on the show, right? We brought it up in an episode, maybe Sneaky Knives.
Was it the Executive Edge?
I think that's what it's called. Yeah, it's made in like some, I think it's South America.
It's like a throwback piece.
Yes.
Yeah. Like spies used to carry it back in the day.
Yeah.
And supposedly AJ was telling me one of his buddies actually taking it on a plane on a trip and not knowing even it got through security and everything. Not that I'm advocating that, but it does look like a pen. I mean, it looks like a little, but the blade is long enough. You could definitely just do some damage with that thing. 100%.
Yeah, I think AJ was saying that there's one family in South America making those.
That's
okay.
crazy.
Yeah.
And this is why we often advise our listeners, do not follow the advice you may or may not hear on Mark the Maker.
Yeah, that was no advice. That was no advice. Just sharing some anecdotal evidence of spycraft.
Right. All right.
What did you get? What else you get?
That's it.
Birch?
I entered a couple little lotteries, but that's it.
Nice.
Well, I just got material. I went back for Damascus, we had looked at Damascus with Sean, and of course we ain't got money when we have time to look at shit. So I was like, I'm gonna come back after the lotteries and shit, and didn't make it back. But did make it back for the vintage Westinghouse stuff. Man, he had cool stuff. The knife handle guy got some rag micarta. I've never used that before.
Mm.
You've never used rag before?
I never have.
Really?
Yeah. He had a lot of crosscut and cool shit, and I could have spent a bunch of money. It seems like I got a decent amount, and it was like $250. I was like, all right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Billy, shout out your boy. What's the name of his company again?
Knife Handle Supply. You can find him on Instagram. I think he has a website as well. But then he'll also show, I think daily he'll show like something he has for sale, and I think you could DM him as well to buy it. But yeah, I mean, I bought a lot of Westinghouse blue glass from him, some emerald, vintage emerald from him. It's funny because I'm like, I was your plug, so let me know when you get stuff in first. Let me get first dibs.
Some more of that vintage emerald, man.
Oh, it's my favorite
Keep an
stuff.
eye on his
right now.
Instagram. He does drops on Instagram.
Yeah.
Oh, I
yeah.
follow him.
Yeah, but he's a super nice dude. He brought his entire family as well. Looks like his wife and daughter. And he was just super stoked to be there. It was his first show ever,
Yeah,
and
that's
so just a collector getting stuff somehow, some way, probably snatching up all the sources in the Pacific Northwest. And yeah, he just, he knows what's cool. He knows what people like, and because he likes the same stuff, right? Because he was a collector. So,
Yeah.
and he oftentimes offers a lot of things in his own collection. And so, yeah, at very affordable prices compared to other people. And, yeah, he's a super nice dude. I always try to send people his way, right? But one day he's going to be too big, and
He'll forget you.
he'll forget me, and yeah.
Well, you said,
Story of my life.
Got some of that, the Westinghouse linen micarta rounds, the butterscotch stuff, and he said he would have had more, but he just sent a bunch to Olamic or whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And they put a bunch on their knives. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I got some stuff too.
Did you?
So obviously AJ is an incredibly generous person. He's like, what do I get someone that has everything? So he shows up and gives me a Mission to Pluto moon swatch.
Oh, fun.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there's no swatch dealers here in Portland area. And I guess he knew that I didn't have one. So pretty cool. My wife stole it from me though. So I got one of those Poppies of War fanny packs from Paladin 33. Wife stole that from me as well.
Damn.
I was there
And,
when she stole that. She was tickled with that.
Yeah, and yeah, it was. I just feel so grateful because like people are trying to give me stuff all the time, right? Like Donnie Starko was always trying to hook me up with stuff, but I always feel guilty because I'm like, I want you guys to make as much money as possible to offset costs to travel and all that. So I've turned a lot of people down. But yeah, that's just our community, right? And so I appreciate even just the offer, right? And like Starko had really cool pens, right? That he did a collab with Tactile Turn.
Oh, that's fun.
And
I didn't know
he
that.
was like, yeah, it's kind of cool. It was pink with like a bunch of black stripes or spots on them. And he was like, dude, take one. I was like, no, you sell it, right? Make your money. But that's just our community, man. They're always trying to hook you up. Everyone's so generous sometimes, and it's not brown nosing or anything. They just, I don't know. There's people are just generous, right? Steel flame guys the whole time. But yeah, I think, yeah, I got blacktop Timascus myself. Did I get a knife? I don't think I got a knife. Yeah, I was really trying to stay away from, entering lottos, even though I was like, oh man. There was one I did enter, but it was like the knife was like $6,000 or something. So I was like, not that many people were entering, so I'll just enter. And yeah, I didn't win either. So, but yeah, I didn't really enter anything, and but that wasn't the whole point for the show. I brought knives, I sold knives, I brown bagged my own show.
What?
I did a delivery. That red carbo quartz one that I posted, the Inset Lock Micro 56. I did a delivery for that one. And then I made a liner lock Mini 56 with this rare turquoise vintage micarta that's like super hard to find these days. I made a liner lock out of that, and I basically said, first person to see me at the show can win this. And as soon as I show up, I couldn't get in the door. They're like, do you have that knife? I'm like, let me just get inside real quick first.
Wow.
And then, yeah, so it was pretty cool. So Kevin got that one as well.
That?
Kevin.
Who? Oh.
Kevin. I think his last name is Waltz.
Yeah.
Is that how you say that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of the second people waiting in line.
He was sitting on your front porch when you came out in the morning.
Yeah. I'm like, what are you doing here? But yeah, so that was the extent of my show. But yeah, everyone's so generous. They're always trying to give you free stuff. And but I was just kind of really stoked about that moon swatch. AJ gave me his last Goonies bat, and I just gave it away to a maker or vendor. I can't remember who I gave it to. It might have been Matt from Glock. As a thank you, I just gave it to him. And yeah, but it was, everything I get, I always try to pass off when I can and when it's not too cool.
I kept expecting Billy to say, "Oh yeah," and then I got this guy Michael that was there, Walker. You might have heard of him. I don't know. I got one of his. Yeah, that's all.
Oh no, that's
no big deal.
I mean,
no big deal.
Right.
It's funny because like I was so even afraid just to even touch that knife, so I didn't even pick it up because I was like, I just know if I drop it or something, I'll whatever, right? But then I just see, everyone just shows up, pulls out their phone and opens and closes knives, recording it in their hand. I'm like, geez, you guys have some balls. But yeah, I can't afford a walker for sure. But I was just there admiring it, just looking at it.
You might be surprised.
Oh yeah, see, speaks up the Walker guy.
What do you mean?
He's got a Walker.
That's right. But like direct from the man, a brand new walker.
I'm going to talk to him about putting a clip on it.
Wow.
Just kidding, Mr. Walker.
Mr. Walker.
And like, can you drill 3 holes so I could put an Emerson clip on there?
Yeah, I need it to be deep carry, please. Gee whiz.
Right.
You got this clip from Knife Kits.
Right.
D10 fell out, so I had to put a new one in.
Right.
Oh, I didn't have a D10.
That's the way I was, Billy, at the AIM show when I went over to look at the knife that he had there. I'm like, ooh, hey, can I ask a question about this? He's like, picks it up. He's like shoving it in my hands. I'm like, what? I don't want to touch this, man.
That thing belongs to the museum.
That's right. Yeah, it was wild. He's like, no, open it, close it. I'll show you here. Yeah. I'm like, oh, gosh.
Yeah, I didn't even touch it. I just like looked at it really closely.
I would be super nervous.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What did you get at the show, Tom?
I didn't go.
Oh, that's right.
Damn.
Me either. I got nothing as well.
I really wish Tom was there because I knew he would just have a blast, right? And
oh yeah.
But I was like, you guys don't know, I even invited to fly Tom out there on my dime. But
I'm not going to do that, man. If I go, I'll fly out on my own dime. I appreciate it though.
Of course. That's how much I wanted you to be there. So
we my son just moved to North Carolina, so we had to go out see the grandchild. And anyways, it's been a crazy summer.
Yeah, that's right, Grandpa Tom.
That was
the grandchild pay for your flight, or
no, but
that was the bad thing about having the show also at the end of the month, because some families had kids that started school that following Monday. But that was the only time we were able to book the convention center for this year. So if we do it again next year, it'll be probably more mid-July.
Yeah, that was wild to hear. I was like, you're what? Going back to school?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that was one of the reasons why some makers couldn't make it, is because, their kids were going to school or something.
Really?
So,
Wow.
yeah.
Summers are wild. Sometimes you get a chance, sometimes you don't.
Right. Last minute vacations and things like that before school starts and things like that is pretty common.
Mm-hmm. Or turn that into your last minute vacation.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I wish I would have been there maybe next year.
Yeah. It sounds like it was a fab time, no doubt. I hope you guys do it next year.
Yes, sir.
We
Good
sat in
time.
the shop and were like depressed. Seriously.
The FOMOist of the FOMO.
We definitely had FOMO.
Yeah, I'm pretty subjective too, so I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but it was an amazing show. Like I said, people were crying. Afros and I were like, yeah, that was crazy. They're crying because it was such an amazing show and an amazing location. Insane. They might have been drunk though, but I mean, that happens. I'll take it. I'll take it.
That's awesome.
Right. They're doing the 1 a.m. Bro, I love you, man.
I love you, man.
You my man. Yeah, it's happened before. All right. So okay, show's done. You guys are gotta get your heads together and talk about next year and if you're gonna do it or not and where and all that, make a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you make the call, what's the time frame? When will you let people know? Or are we not to pin you down this way?
We'll do it pretty soon. We're gonna have a little talk coming up here pretty soon, and we'll we're playing around with some looking at our options, but we're gonna. The plan is to get it locked down sooner than later.
Yeah, the venue thing's a factor, I gotta assume.
Yeah. And the cool thing about Oregon is there are a lot of cool options that are very Oregon centric, very Oregon centric. But we're gonna chop it up amongst ourselves and make a decision here pretty soon.
Yeah, we want to announce it as soon as possible so people can kind of get ready for it because, obviously we know, sooner you book flights, the cheaper and hotels and all that. So, if we do it on the coast again, I always tell people to book hotels as soon as possible, even
Right.
a year in advance, because summertime on the Oregon coast is insane to try to get a room. And so, even for locals, even there's nothing going on. So even if I try to get a room tomorrow, it'd be really hard to get a room, especially over the weekend. So yeah, we'll announce it as soon as possible.
What else is going on from here, Bill? You're getting back in the shop, making stuff. What's going on with you? You got an update for us?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been on the show, and you guys had me on as a newbie maker, but in January I'm going to hit my 10-year mark as a knife maker, which is pretty crazy to think.
Wild.
And one of the cool things about this show was that I saw Shade, right? And when I first met Shade, he was like just a small little thing, and now he's all grown up and, we're cracking jokes and, his sarcasm is very much hilarious and very witty. Mm-hmm. And so, but I went to, Sean's house almost 10 years ago now. And so once I hit that 10-year mark, I'm going to be a regular knife maker, right? At that point, I get my regular, normal knife maker, non-quitter status at that point. And so, so I think since we last spoke, I think I've really been trying to refine my style and just trying to do new things, experiment, and just have fun with it. I've been kind of like the sole provider of the family for about 8 years, in the past 8 years. And then my wife just started working again. So it kind of leaves a little less financial burden for me to just kind of experiment sometimes and have a little bit of time to kind of do random wacky stuff that I've always wanted to try. So that's the kind of the path my knife making career is kind of headed. But learning a lot more with the CNC. When I first got my CNC, it was kind of like a glorified water jet, and I didn't even know how to turn it on. And, with the help of Jerry McGinnis, he really set me on the path. And during the pandemic, I actually, spent a lot of time just sitting down, trying to get better at CAD and CAM and been experimenting. So that kind of just reawakened my passion for knife making as well, because all of a sudden, all these doors open for you. And then, the gun business has exploded as well. And, man, it's been crazy. So, this January, I believe, I offered my first gun and knife package. And I was like, who else can do this? Not many people. So, I offered 5 spots for a custom AK and a custom knife for me, whatever they kind of wanted. So I'm going to be hopefully finishing those up in the next few months, and then doing a couple of shows at the end of the year. I'm doing California Custom Knife Show for sure. They moved locations this year, so it's not in Anaheim anymore. I think I'm scheduled to do the show with the West Tennessee boys. I believe that's in September, and everyone's welcome to do that. I think it's a free show, free for vendors, free for attendees. It's about 3 hours west of Nashville. So if you're going to complain about going an hour and a half to the coast, you got double that, right? But it's a free show. Come on out. And then I believe I am going to do Blade Show Texas in February, and then New York in March. So I wasn't originally going to do New York, but then, Steve invited me. So I was like, I got to go, I guess. I got to, open up my customer base and go eat some food in the East Coast. And then, after that, nothing else planned till our show in July, if we have another one. But yeah, it's been amazing few years, I still listen to every episode you guys do. It feels like I'm just hanging with the friends at the pit when I hear you guys talk, and helps me get knife work done. And yeah, it's been a great journey. I don't plan on ever quitting. Had a conversation with my mother-in-law. She's talking about, you need to plan better for retirement. I was like, I'll make knives until I can't anymore. And so
that's our plan.
I'm still passionate about making knives. I still love it. I still, I'm striving to get better every time. And that's just pretty much it. My kids are getting older now, and it's been a great journey. I'm extremely happy, and that's always been my goal. Not the whole financial thing, but it's been great. Money's been really good. I'm surprised with some of my auctions have been going for these days, and I'm like, oh, it's just a fluke. I have some imposter syndrome from it, but yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I don't plan on quitting anytime soon. And I also started multiple businesses. I have a Cerakoting business as well, where I Cerakote for OEM gun companies. So it's like kind of like I have 4 jobs now. I have the show, then I have guns, and I have knives, and then I have a Cerakoting business. And so, I have 1 employee that helps me with that. But yeah, it's kind of, it's been an amazing journey, and, it's been awesome. What can I say? But yeah, that's what's been going on with me.
Billy, do you think that it seems like it could kind of go both ways. You get your hands in a bunch of things at this point, right? You got a lot going on. And is that for you a thing where it helps you because, before you get sick of doing this one thing, it's time to go do something else, and that keeps it mixed up and fun and interesting? Or is it, it could easily just dig yourself a hole, right?
Oh yeah.
Where you're 100%. Very deep.
Yeah. I think if I didn't have guns as well as knives, I would probably go a little bit stir crazy. Yeah. Because what happens, right? A lot of knife makers know is that maybe 1 or 2 of your models go crazy as far as popularity wise. And if you just do the same knife over and over again, even with different materials, you kind of think, oh, I feel like I'm in Groundhog Day. So, being able to jump back and forth from doing guns and knives have really been good for my sanity. But I think it's kind of part of my nature where I'm always like, I grew up, I wouldn't say I was crazy poor, but I wasn't very wealthy growing up. And so I always feel like I have to try to do a bunch of things and try 10 things and maybe one sticks. And unfortunately, 4 things stuck. And so I'm like, uh-oh, no time for nothing. Right. And so my wife, I said, she's a therapist. She just went back to work and she's actually starting her own private practice. And so it's kind of given me a little bit of a break where I can spend more time with the kids as well. And then just kind of really focus on, a lot of administrative stuff for the other businesses. And, but yeah, I think I always have to try to do multiple things just to, I don't know, my mind always runs 100 miles an hour. And, it's like, I don't know, if I didn't, I don't know, maybe I'll get a little bit stir crazy.
Yeah. ADD, like that knife maker ADD.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Tom's over there like, did this motherfucker say the money is good? What is going on?
No, I always say this. I'm like, I'm just the flavor of the month. Soy sauce is the flavor of the month right now. So.
When you said that the other day, I legit thought you were talking about some sort of new hot material. And I was like, where do I get this soy sauce at?
Right.
Some vintage soy sauce?
Sorry, Birch.
So, knife makers come in and out of style. I'm just trying to do the best I can and be creative. And so maybe something I'm doing is been catching the eye of some collectors. But I know, I don't know, maybe it's just me.
Give yourself credit, man. You've been turning out some really nice stuff. I mean, it's not because you've become flavor of the month. You've earned it. So give yourself a little credit.
Here.
I can't do that. I don't know. It just, Asians can't take compliments, right? It's like, but I don't know. It's just,
you should know whether it matters or not. We've all talked about that, about seeing your stuff come and evolve and the designs getting better, cleaner, more fluid, and the work looking better constantly. That's awesome. Good for you, man.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Everybody likes soy sauce.
The question is, does everybody like hoisin sauce?
Okay. All right.
That's the question.
We're gonna have to edit a lot of this out. I'm about to go racist on Nick.
Tell him what your mother-in-law said about my career.
Oh no. Okay, I guess so. She won't hear this. So my mother-in-law is pretty crazy, right? And so she's like, I guess she saw Nick for the first time a week ago, and she was just really confused because she's like, why is there a big black man in my house, right? And if you guys don't know, Oregon just has a lot of white people, so it's just like unusual to kind of see it. So, and Nick is a big figure, big dreadlocks, right? And gorgeous black man, right? And so
stop.
So she was basically saying, oh, what's he do? And I was telling him that Nick makes a great living as a musician, and she's like, oh, there's no money in that. And I was like, have you heard of like Bruce Springsteen or Aretha Franklin or Sting? She's like, nope. Oh.
All right.
So I had to like convince her that Nick probably makes more money than I do, and yeah, it was just kind of funny because she's like, oh, all he can do is be a music teacher at a high school. I was like, damn. Yeah. But I told Nick that, and then he like was showing off his new presidential Rolex while he was walking away. He was holding it up, like, show this to your mother-in-law. But wow. But yeah, I mean, she's an immigrant. I mean, what do you expect? So
I like the band teacher now.
Right.
Let me just say that the disproving looks were palpable.
You felt it, right? You felt it deep down inside.
She gave me that half smile, like, yeah.
Oh yeah. Bless his heart.
That's just how Asian people are. If you meet an old Asian lady, she'll give you the geisha smile, right? She's like, hello. And then, yeah. And then in reality, they'll be like, go hide my purse, right? So,
that's accurate. That's how I felt.
That's a Joe Coy joke. So,
oh boy.
Yeah. But
What about you, Nick? You said, so I think when we talked to you, there was still kind of on the backside of COVID stuff, maybe. Am I remembering that right? You were doing, weren't you doing stuff other than music?
I was on the show in 2019. I had to go back and look because I was like, man, I think I was on the show pre-COVID.
Okay.
So I had a pretty wild ride. And it was actually outside of the fact that it was COVID and all the stuff that came along with it. It actually ended up being a very cool pivot for me. I remember so I did the show, I think in August in 2019. So after that, I headed back to New York and did some great shows with Sting and a great show with Dash Myhawk, the actor from Ray Donovan. That's a good buddy of mine. So we did a very cool show for an album that he just released recently and came home after a really solid year and COVID hit while I was actually in the middle of doing some shows. And our schedule got interrupted and we got sent home on March 13th. And my entire year was booked all the way to a big New Year's Eve event. So my whole year was booked. And within, a month as the thing develops, as COVID started, as we all realized that this thing was what it became, my entire career said, Eek! So
right.
For the first month or so, I was thinking, this will go away, this will whatever. So I was calling Birch and Kendrick and trying to get information on how to get back into my Borderlands game on Xbox. And was just like, okay, well, this will be over and I'll get back to work. And then I was like, oh man, this isn't going to be over. So thankfully, we're in a good spot. And the no work factor wasn't necessarily a financial issue for me. It was more of a mindset issue. And I put together a fundraiser for the New York hospitals and got some of my friends who are little, we'll say celebrities and tried to raise some money. And after that, I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? And I kind of made a decision with myself that I didn't know how long this was going to last. And I didn't know if music was going to come back, Right. I really didn't know what was happening. And so I just said, okay, well, whatever happens, I'm going to make sure that I come out on the other side of this with some new skill or some new something. I'm going to take this time to learn something. And I wasn't sure what that was. There was around that same time, there was a big shakeup in the Oregon SAR community. There had been a death up on the mountain, and it turned into a whole shit show. The 911 call to the National Guard to get a helicopter up on the mountain took hours, and the subject ended up dying. When the helicopter finally showed up, he ended up dying as he was getting loaded into the bird, and it turned into a big lawsuit. And so basically, long story short, the Clackamas County Sheriff wanted to take over all SAR operations, and there were some long-standing SAR teams that would lose people and get disbanded. And it was a shit show, man. To keep it honest, it was a shit show. There was a lot of back and forth and ego, and basically, I found myself in a really an opportunity that I will cherish for the rest of my life, and that was a group of us went out on a limb and left the team that we were on, and joined and basically stood up a brand new team with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Department. And man, that was crazy. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, it was during the pandemic, so we were busy, and everybody was going stir crazy and bored, so people were doing all kinds of dumb shit, and we were busy. I mean, I think one of the deputies said we had 124 missions in the calendar year when the team stood up, and there was about 12 of us.
Wow.
And the thing that was so cool about it was that we were not doing anything where you had to wait for incident command to get set up, and get assignments and all that, we were getting calls on active 911 and just charging out and hitting the mountain and just getting after it. And it was, man, it was crazy. I will forever love that period, because it was a super elite, high speed team. And, man, we were getting after it. So, and we had everything from, down to aircraft missions, to fire evacuation. We had historic wildfires in 2020 where everybody, Billy's over where Billy is, where I am, everybody was on alert where we might have to leave our homes, because Oregon was just on fire, and the SAR team was deployed for weeks, going out and evacuating people and having missions at the same time up in the fire zone. I mean, it was just like we were working with Air Force Special Operations PJs from the 125th Special Tactics Squadron. It was just, man, it was high speed. It felt like it was like back in the 70s, like, just this getting out in the mountains and just putting in work. So it was a pretty incredible time and really gave me a purpose while the pandemic was going on. And coincidentally on one of the missions, we work with a unit they're called Reach and Treat paramedics, and they're basically paramedics that can hike into any environment and provide paramedic level pre-hospital care, and they're studs. And we got to know those guys pretty well, and I was on a mission with one of the guys, and he was telling me that he was doing government contracting as a wildland REMS team. And a REMS team is a rapid extraction module support team. So they're basically, what's an easy way to say it? They're basically high and low angle extraction experts,
Right.
that go out on the fire line with firefighters, and if firefighters get injured, sick, or worse, REMS teams can get to them wherever they're at in extremely austere environments, where normal ambulances and paramedics can't get to. And this guy was coming back and buying houses after the fire season.
Wow.
And I was like, what? I was like, so tell me about this. And he said, yeah, man, all you need to do, because I'm already a rope rescue technician, a high angle rope rescue technician. He said, all you need to do is go get your EMT and you can go contract. And I was like, I am sold. That just sounded like the best thing. So I went back to school during the pandemic and got my EMT. And then I got my NFPA Swiftwater Rescue Cert, which was terrifying.
I bet.
Despite the stereotypes, I can swim my ass off, motherfucker, so don't even get with me. But jumping into rapids and swimming in them and learning how, I mean, it was definitely sack up time.
Right.
It was a 4-day course, and it was the power of white water is pretty. I definitely had to get my mind right, but I got that certification as well, got my EMT, and then went and got my wildland type 2 red card so that I could be a wildland firefighter. And I went out and deployed as a REMS team medic, and got to go out and fight wildfires. And then if anything happened, you get to work and do your job. So it was very, it put me in a spot. I mean, I think I said in my last podcast, I think I talked about the fact that when I was a kid, I wanted to be a firefighter. So it was just an interesting kind of loop around and bucket list thing for me.
Full circle.
And I actually found myself pretty conflicted, because I actually loved doing that. As a government contractor, you make a shit ton of money. You'd be shocked, versus just a hand crew or something. I mean, you make, there's guys out there that were making, $2,000 a day, and it's dangerous work, and you're working 15 and a half hours every single day. You're on 2 and 3 week deployments, and you're away from your family, and the medics are the last people to come down off the fire line, and you're driving alone, and anything can happen. There's it's definitely tricky, but it was a great experience. I met some great people, and I really found myself conflicted because I had not been playing music, and I was like, man, I could do this. And when I went and got my EMT, I got to know a bunch of the paramedics and EMTs and firefighters that were teaching the course, and they're like, man, you need to come work for Portland Fire. They would snatch you up. And I was really at a crossroads, because I thought, man, maybe this is what I'm going to do. I don't know if music's ever going to come back. And the fact that some nature event took my career away, I don't ever want to be in that position again. Where something outside of my control can take away my livelihood. That was kind of a wake up call for me. But it was conflicting for me until I went back and played my first gig. And when I went back and played my first gig, I was like, okay, yeah, this is what I do. This is it. The camaraderie on the stage, much like the camaraderie, out on the fires and out on the search and rescue. Music like that is a team event. And we all rely on each other to get the job done and keep each other safe and all that. And but when I got back and played music and got that feeling, I was like, oh, okay. I'm really not as conflicted as I thought I was. I just, music was on the back burner while the shit show was going on. So yeah, that's it. Music pretty much came back full time last year, 2022. And it's actually been so busy that in March of this year, I had to take a leave of absence from the team because I just couldn't. I was trying to juggle everything, and training on the weekends and playing gigs at night was giving me about 2 hours of sleep when I need to be fully focused. And, I need to be fully focused when I'm training on vertical. At height, you can't come in tired. You have to be focused, and I just was falling behind. So I just had to step back for a little bit until I can kind of get my schedule under control. And I guess it's a good problem to have. I'm very happy that the career is back, but I'm also I kind of miss, working up in the mountains was very cool. It was very cool. So
it's always good to have options.
That's how I'm looking at it. It's options. And what I am glad about is that I did give myself another option. I mean, who would have thought that a global pandemic in our lifetime would happen? I mean, I didn't. Right. So maybe someone else was like, oh man, well, I was waiting for that. But no, who would have thought that my career would be on hold for something like that? So doing something proactive to make sure that I will have something that's meaningful and that I'm passionate about. Should the music get interrupted again by something out of my control, that's a good feeling to have.
Yeah, or even being able to pivot if you really wanted to, right? I mean, that's a powerful thing to have in your hand, right, or in your pocket. That
I think so.
There's something else there too, right? So hey, if this doesn't feel good anymore, or doesn't seem right, or I get, I need a break from one thing, there's another great thing that you're passionate about that you can swing to and enjoy it and still make a good living and be happy, right?
Yeah. And man, come on, I'm an old dude, man. I haven't been in school forever. So going back to school was pretty, it would seem pretty daunting for me. But it did give me some confidence that, anything I put my mind to, if I really give it my full attention and I'm fully present in it, there's really nothing I cannot accomplish. And because when I thought about going back to school, I was like, man, come on, bro.
You and Sean.
Really? Yeah. Sean can speak to that as well. So that was a good thing for myself. That was a good affirmation for myself. Like, okay, you just take you a quick minute to get your bearings, and then, I crushed it. So that's awesome. That was good for me.
Hell yeah.
That's it, man. All right. Well, it's we stay in touch and talk, certainly enough to stay in touch with each other, but it's still really nice to be able to sit down with both of you guys and chat about what's going on, talk about this passion project with the show. And we really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, it was our pleasure for sure. We love you guys. We've been friends for a long time, and so you guys are still doing a great thing with this podcast. And so Absolutely. It's just an honor for us to be on here again. And thanks for all the shout outs. Thanks for coming, Birch and Sean. And hopefully Mark and Tom, you guys can come on next year. Love to have you.
That'd be great.
Yes, indeed. Appreciate it, fellas.
Nice. I feel like I'm about to bring you a Rolex or something next time I see you.
Yeah, right.
Nah, you
What
sell
happened?
those and finish up your Mustang, bro.
Billy's the Rolex whisperer.
Whisperer.
Somehow he's squeezing that shit out.
I've been getting a lot of watches, that's for sure, man, and just
What
been
is
really
up with
blessed.
that?
That's crazy. My dealer loves me, and yeah, I got 7 watches in like 5 months.
That's
So,
crazy.
yeah.
So thanks to our friends on Patreon for all of your support. We appreciate you. High five to George for sticking with us on this whole crazy journey. It's been a long time doing this show, and George has been here from the start. Before we even started doing advertising stuff, I think we went the first season at least, right, without doing it. But he was bugging us. Hey, I want to support. Can I help? It's like, all right, man. Thank you for sticking with us. So, and our friends at Giant Mouse, you guys are awesome. It's really cool to see what I think ultimately is really a passion project for all 3 of those guys too, right? And I think you can see it when you talk to them and look at the products. And so we're happy to have them on board. So thanks again for your help, fellas.
Yeah, man. Support the guys that support us because they're good people. I mean, not just because they're giving us money and advertising, they're actually good people we like and work with and friends with. And
Right.
I don't know. So do it.
And like Tom said, tell him Tom sent you, even if he didn't.
Right.
There you go.
It's important.
He needs to recover after all this bashing he took on this episode. It was maybe slightly more than normal. No, not really. Not really.
Normal.
I can feel
pretty
love.
typical. That's fair. All right.
Oh, yeah, it's normal.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, folks. Take care.
Later.
Thanks, fellas.
Thanks, guys. Thanks to all the exhibitors and attendees coming to our show. If you're interested in doing our show next year, if you're a maker and don't make trash, hit me up, Instagram or Facebook, wherever. All right. Thanks, guys.
Billy, you didn't pay for an ad?
I'm just
Stopped
saying.
recording like 10 minutes ago.
Damn.
Oh, man. I mean, American Medical Exchange, if you want meteorite, giant mouse, if you want some knives.
Only talk to Billy, though, if you don't make trash, okay? Weed yourself out. He doesn't have time for that.
Now I'm conflicted if I can go.
Oh,
Right.
come on.
You're
Tom.
out.
He's fishing for compliments now. Come on, man.
All right.
You
I
like
love you guys.
Call
you
off
like my 5'11s, don't you?
Yeah. You can't.
5'11's not allowed.
Only if they have zip-off legs.
It ain't gonna be pretty if you make me take them off.
Well, how are you going to get in the dunk tank? Come on.
You don't want to
That's
see
true.
those legs.
Dude, the dunk tank's gonna be cold.
I'll warm it up.
We
for
can
you.
warm it. We can warm it up a little bit.
I'm down.
Maybe put a little bit of Jello in there.
This show is over. We have to stop
like Jell-O.
right here. Tom and the
Yes.
Jello.
It's going to get
Right.
weird.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
No, thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, fellas.
To learn more about our makers, you can find Tom Crine on the web at crineknives.net, in his Facebook group, Crine Knives, or in his Instagram account, at Crine Knives. For Michael Birch, check birchtreeblades.com, Facebook group Birch Tree Blade Works, or Michael's Instagram at birchtreeblades. For myself and the Raygun Bead Project, we're on the web at raygundivision.com. We have a Facebook group called Raygun Division, or my personal Instagram, at msteiner. For those interested in photos, references from the show, or some discussion about the show itself, you can find us on the web at markofthemaker.com, in a Facebook group called Mark of the Maker, or on our Instagram, at Mark of the Maker. Last but not least, the ultra cool and haunting background music we use for the show is a piece called Noir Guitar by Stevie's Amp Shack, found at the Free Music Archive and licensed under Creative Commons CC BY 4.0. Thanks for listening.